qui gemit in exilio, qui vatus Dei filio. Captive Israel that mourns in lonely exile here until the Son of God appear. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel. Oh, come thou day spring, come and cheer our spirits by thine advent here. Disperse the gloomy clouds of night, and death's dark shadows put to flight. And rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel. Come thou King of David, come and open wide our heavenly home. Make safe the way that leads on high, and close the path to misery. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel.
This is a new day. This is a new day full of sound and light, bright, bright light. Notice that? An expectation. This day has been waiting for you. This day has been waiting especially for you, to embrace you, to guide you. This day has been waiting with open arms, just for you. This is the day we have been given. Let's not waste it. Come now and let us worship together. Please rise in body or spirit for our first hymn in the gray hymnal, 239, Go Tell It on the Mountain.
We want to hear you sing this. This is a good kicking Christmas song. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born. While shepherds kept their watching o'er silent flocks by night, behold, throughout the heavens there shone a holy light. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that
feared and trembled when low above the earth rang out the angel chorus that hailed the baby's birth.
Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born.
Down in a lowly manger, the humble babe was born, and God sent us salvation that blessed Christmas morn.
Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born.
Good morning. Don't worry, we're going to save the Christmas tunes for Christmas Eve. We're just giving you a little, a little taste. It's good to be with you all this morning. Beautiful, beautiful day. My goodness, I love days like this. So bright. So we have a few announcements for today. Some of you know there's going to be a memorial service for Stoughton Lind at 1 o'clock today. So if you are a friend of Lynn's, and I know many of our church community is, it's going to be today at 1 p.m. And we have the Lind family here and everyone who will be part of that. We do have a Zazenkai coming up this Saturday at 7 a.m. Zazenkai is a one-day meditation retreat, sitting and walking meditation. It is open to everyone in this community. So if you would like to participate, please RSVP with the office so we know how many chairs or cushions to set up. And if you have questions about meditation, especially in the Zen Buddhist tradition, you can talk with me. We are going to have Roshi Daikin Nelson, again in person, who's coming from Harlem, New York, to be able to talk with us about the Bodhisattva precepts. So I think it'll be really good. Again, that's going to be this coming Saturday. It starts in the morning, and we're going to have lunch and then a discussion. And you're welcome to come for any part of that. So if you want to come for just the morning or just for lunch and discussion, that's fine. But please RSVP. And then later that evening, Saturday, there's going to be a Grinch movie night and potluck with Kathleen Hogue. So this is for all ages. Join Kathleen for a Grinch movie night and potluck. And last but not least, the official end of the pledge drive is when? Today. You're right. Good. 2 people got it. Adam, yes? Solstice. Yes. And we have many events coming up. I mean, we have a winter solstice celebration. We have a winter solstice service. We have a Charles Dickens reading. We have an actor who does a really good impression of Charles Dickens who's going to read A Christmas Carol. But yes, join us. We're going to celebrate Buddha's enlightenment, winter solstice, and Christmas Eve. And a little bit of Charles Dickens thrown in there. Why not? And a baby dedication on Christmas Eve.
How's the pledge drive going?
You'll have to ask some folks.
And next Sunday is the Bring It By.
Oh, yes, and next Sunday is the Bring It By. So you can talk with Elizabeth White more about that.
Things that are worthy of being picked, so we're going to bridge the gap in the fundraiser.
Good. Wonderful. So as you see, a lot going on, many wonderful things. Wonderful to be with you all in this season. And I would love to invite Sarah Lown for our chalice lighting.
Thank you, Joseph. I don't have to introduce myself now. Thank you. Usually I do. December, the theme for December is wonder, which I think might have been an easier sell had we been a month ago and enjoying one of the most vivid fall seasons I remember. And by contrast, it seems light now, but trust me, by 5, we'll be plunged into blackness, and it's heavy. And so I think that must be why God invented Hollywood. There's nothing like a holiday movie to lift the spirits on a dark night, and the movies are great, but the stories behind the movies are even more great. There's Rudolph, who succeeded in life by following his nose, something your mother told you not to do. He succeeded. But Robert May, who wrote this story, himself was chronically feeling like he never belonged, feeling like an outcast. And he followed his nose to that story. And then there's Scrooge. Consider Scrooge, a grumpy old man who got cheered up by a bunch of ghosts. Charles Dickens spent much of his life crippled by poverty and dodging creditors right and left. And then the crown jewel of all holiday movies, It's a Wonderful Life, about a suicidal man who was saved by the accompaniment of an angel named Clarence. Filmmaker Frank Capra was a man who despaired so much there were weeks at a time when he could not get himself out of bed. But these individuals used their own misfortunes to assure us that love and hope triumphs over despair. At heart, this is where I find wonder. Later today, we remember the life of Staunton Lynn, a pacifist and a courageous champion of human rights, and a moral visionary. Staunton Lynn stood up for peace, for educational justice, minority rights, workers' rights, prisoners' rights, and he and his family paid a heavy personal and professional price for it. Amy Goodman from Democracy Now! Once asked Staunton Lynn what gave him hope in the face of despair. He said, "He gets hope when black and white prisoners stand in solidarity for human rights at the Southern Ohio Correctional Facility in Lucasville." He said he sees hope for the people when workers take over the factories in Argentina, and when people, like a former house servant, becomes Minister of Justice in Bolivia. Staunton Lynn advocated for accompaniment, and he and his wife Alice embodied it. Just like Clarence, the awkward angel, just like Oscar Romero, just like so many of you here today. We light this chalice so we can accompany one another and so we can accompany the most fragile among us. And in that way, it's a wonderful life.
Clover, I haven't seen you in a while. Can you come help me? Testing. There we go. Right over here. And kind of like angle it this way a little bit. There we go. Yep, like that. Clover, you are going to be over here and you are going to be the snowflakes slowly falling. And then when I tell you to, you're going to pick up one of these. Those and put it on the branch, okay? You'll tell me what to do, okay? So today's story is called The Weight of a Snowflake by Janine K. Groschmeyer. And this is one of the stories that we used to use in our spirit play classroom. I don't know how many of you have ever heard of spirit play, but it's a great curriculum that we used, and it's kind of Montessori based. So here we go. The story takes place in the woods in wintertime. On a winter morning filled with white snow, a chickadee perched on a thin branch of a maple tree. and watched the snowflakes fall. A bright red cardinal flew over and landed nearby. Wrinkled. "What you doing?" chirped the cardinal. "Watching snowflakes," said the chickadee. The cardinal cocked his head to one side. "What for?" "They're pretty, and each one is different. I haven't seen two that look the same." "A snowflake is a snowflake, that's what I say," said the cardinal. "And they're cold. Me, I can't wait for spring. This winter stuff is for the mammals. They have fur on their toes." The chickadee nodded so that the little black cap on her head bobbed up and down, but she didn't say yes and she didn't say no. White snowflakes fell all around them. Okay. Go ahead. The cardinal put his foot down and hopped sideways on the branch to get a closer look closer to her. I'm going to put him up here. How about we get him right here? There we go. Is he going to stick? There we go. The cardinal said, "What are you doing now?" "Counting snowflakes," said the chickadee. The cardinal cocked his head to the other side. "What for?" "I was wondering how many snowflakes this branch will hold." "Don't worry about it. That's what I say," said the cardinal. "Snowflakes don't weigh anything." "Not anything?" "Well, almost not anything. Snowflakes weigh next to nothing. They don't count for anything, and they're all the same." He clacked his strong beak once, twice, and then again. And then he flapped his strong red wings and flew away. The snow continued to fall. The chickadee stayed where she was, perched on the thin branch of the maple tree and counting the snowflakes as they fell. White snowflakes fell all around her. More snowflakes fell, each one different, each one beautiful. Some of them landed on the branch. Some of them landed on the branch. Some of them landed on the branch. Snowflake after snowflake, each one weighing almost nothing, but each one counting for something, because as the chickadee counted the snowflakes and counted up to number 10,303, that branch broke. And it fell to the ground. The chickadee fell with it, but not for very long. She flapped her wings, and she flew up into the air, into the snowflakes that fell from the sky. Each snowflake different, each snowflake beautiful, each snowflake counting for something in its own way. The end. Now clean up the snowflakes.
Feels like a nice offering. I think we'll get snow at some point, right? Well, as all the youth go out to their class with Kathleen, Please join me in reading our covenant, which is found in your order of service. Love is a spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Our church is completely supported by pledge income from members and friends like you. If you wish to make an offering to us, please designate on your check or envelope it is for UUYO. Each month, we donate all loose cash and unmarked checks in the offering plate to a nonprofit organization whose missions and actions are consistent with the UU principles and the mission of the UUYO. Our giveaway the plate recipient for December is, the drums are rolling, the Boys and Girls Club of Youngstown, Ohio. Yay! Since 1969, the Boys and Girls Club of Youngstown, Ohio has been at the forefront of youth development and focusing on connecting with young people from historically marginalized communities because of economic, social, and family circumstances. Its mission is to inspire and enable all young people to reach their full potential as productive, caring, and responsible citizens in a safe environment where they can learn, have fun, and be themselves. To further encourage the club members' growth and success, the Boys and Girls Club has a rewards program where students can earn club bucks to purchase items in the club store. UUYO's contributions will help support the Club Bucks and Club Store program and the ongoing leadership development and achievements of young people participating in the club's wide range of activities. We will now receive the offering that supports the life of Youngstown, the Mahoning Valley, and our wider world. Thank you.
As I wander out under the sky, how Jesus, the Savior, did come for to die for poor ornery people like you and like I wonder as I wander out under the sky. When Mary birthed Jesus was in a cow stall with wise men and farmers and shepherds and all. But high from God's heaven a star's light did fall, and the promise of the ages it did then recall. If Jesus had wanted for any wee thing, a star in the heavens or a bird on the wing, or all of God's angels in heaven to sing, he surely could have it, 'cause he was the King. as I wander out under the sky, how Jesus the Savior did come for to die, for poor ornery people like you and like I wonder as I wander out under the sky.
We have some people to hold in our meditation this morning. Achilles Palumbo is still in a coma at St. Elizabeth's in Boardman. So let's hold Achilles and Randy. And also Melissa Smith is hospitalized at Trumbull Memorial for pneumonia. I've seen them both, and they appreciate text messages, calls, brief visits. See me after if you'd like to be one of those. So let's hold them in our meditation for a few moments.
Today's reading is a poem by Billy Collins called Aimless Love. This morning, as I walked along the lake shore, I fell in love with a wren, and later in the day, with a mouse the cat had dropped under the dining room table. In the shadows of an autumn evening, I fell for a seamstress, still at her machine in the tailor's window. And later, for a bowl of broth, steam rising like smoke from a naval battle. This is the best kind of love, I thought, without recompense, without gifts or unkind words, without suspicion or silence on the telephone. The love of a chestnut, the jazz cap, and one hand on the wheel. No lust, no slam of the door. The love of the miniature orange tree, the clean white shirt, the hot evening shower, the highway that cuts across Florida. No waiting, no huffiness or rancor, just a twinge every now and then. For the wren who had built her nest on a low branch overhanging the water, and for the dead mouse still dressed in its light brown suit. But my heart is always propped up in a field on its tripod, ready for the next arrow. After I carried the mouse by the tail to a pile of leaves in the woods, I found myself standing at the bathroom sink, gazing down affectionately at the soap. So patient and soluble, so at home in its pale green dish. I could feel myself falling again as I felt its turning in my wet hands, and I caught the scent of lavender and stone.
What wondrous love is this, oh my soul, what wondrous love is this, oh my soul. What wondrous love is this, that caused the Lord of bliss to bear the dreadful curse for my soul, to bear the dreadful curse for my soul. When I was sinking down, sinking down, sinking down, when I was sinking down, sinking down, when I was sinking down, sinking down, sinking down, God laid aside his crown for my soul, for my soul. God laid aside his crown for my soul. To God and to the Lamb I will sing, I will sing. To God and to the Lamb I will sing. To God and to the Lamb, who is the great I am. To God and to the Lamb I will sing.
I wasn't sure what to share this morning. Like many of you, I'm coming off of Thanksgiving with many events waiting, holiday parties, festivities, and also hospital visits, memorial services, and just plain trying to stay warm. Remembering to bring a scarf. I have to remember that. But I had a conversation with someone recently which helped give me a little direction. I was having lunch at the Garden Cafe at Kravitz near Fellows Riverside Garden. We were sitting on the far left side with my back facing the art gallery, and I had this spectacular view of the lake. I saw a man who looked like Crocodile Dundee in a wide-brimmed cowboy hat and fingerless gloves, carefully placing a small pine Christmas tree in the center of the cafe. Like Crocodile Dundee, he took out a sharp, machete-looking knife in the middle of all these diners and very carefully, almost tenderly, cut the binding off of this tree so the branches would have some room to spread out. I thought to myself, this is how Christmas works. I'm getting a peek behind the scenes. I was sipping tea, and seemingly out of nowhere, my friend asked me, "Have you had any mystical experiences?" So, to give you some context, ministers get asked really surprising questions quite often. It's one of the things I like about it. I usually have little to no idea what someone will ask or say to me. I've actually tried to anticipate when I first started, and I've learned I'm 90% wrong. So I've just learned not to anticipate. So I wasn't exactly surprised by this question because almost all the questions I get are surprising. So I thought about this for a couple of seconds. Have I had any mystical experiences? I thought about whether I should share certain experiences that seemed wildly unusual, those with little explanation. But something in me said, no, that's not the real heart of this exact question in this moment. Have I had any mystical experiences? I took a sip of tea, and a simple answer came to me. Of course. This, to me, is a mystical experience. Having tea with a friend, overlooking a beautiful lake, being able to admire the acumen of Crocodile Dundee with a Christmas tree. To list all the mystical experiences in any given hour would take 10 or more lifetimes. We act like we know what our life is, and I'm convinced that most of us really don't, at least not all of it. There's a mystery and a wonder that permeates every single thing we do, if we choose to see it that way. It's a wonder to me that I can sit with a person and have them understand even a semblance of what I'm trying to communicate. It's astounding to me. I can't believe that my body can take in liquid and food without my permission and turn it into energy through a process that I have very little understanding of. I'm amazed that I can notice something beautiful and someone else will notice the exact same thing I'm noticing and have a completely different experience of it. I heard a few years ago another word for God is surprise. And I'm surprised a lot. I wasn't sure my answer would satisfy my friend that I think this is a mystical experience. But surprisingly, it did. He said something to the effect, "Yeah, that seems like a good way to go through life." I'm not sure if it's good or bad, but for me it is. You want another mysterious, numinous experience this morning? Okay, we have a little time. Painting a bedroom. Jennifer and I are trying to make the most of the weather turning cold and do something inside our house to spruce it up a bit. It's an amazing experience to roll paint. It's probably because I'm an amateur. It's not my job. I know some of you paint very often. But I find it incredibly soothing and calming to put that first coat of paint over primer. I kept thinking to myself of the importance of primer. Stay with me for a little bit. I'm priming the wall to have a new experience of itself. You ever think of it that way? I thought of the ways we can choose to prime ourselves for awe and wonder, and how important that primer is. I've learned through trial and error, it's ill-advised to go from one coat of paint to another. You need that coat of primer in between if it's going to stick, right? It needs that primer for the new layer to actually stick and become part of the wall, to become part of itself. It made me think of worship differently. In my mind, what we are doing here this morning is putting on a coat of primer. That's what we're doing. This is not the new coat of paint, so don't worry. After you leave the sanctuary, that new coat is completely up to you, if you so choose. And you can choose the same color paint, metaphorically speaking, and the primer is really just unnecessary then. And some people think of church that way, a kind of unnecessary ritual. They may think, where is the transformation here? In short, where is the new coat of paint? But to my understanding, this is just primer. This is simply to give a space for a new choice to be made. You don't have to make that choice. You don't have to make any new choices. And maybe for some people, they only need one coat of paint their whole life. One way of seeing and experiencing life. And maybe that's actually completely fine. But I've always been curious. Perhaps more curious than maybe for my own good sometimes. I know very little, and I want to experience as much as I can of this brief and wonderful life. And I used to think that meant physically going to places and situations that are very different. That's one way to get primed, for sure. But I've discovered it can be simpler than that. Coming here is a way to get primed for my week. I open myself to the experience of being here with you. And every Sunday, every single one, I'm surprised. Something breaks through. Snow suddenly falls in the sanctuary. I feel primed to be open to life, which is to be open to surprise, which in turn is to be primed for wonder. I think every single encounter we have is that potential for awe and wonder. What Rudolf Otto called the mysterium tremendum. Jeff likes that term. Satan and Victor Price, mysterium tremendum. It's a phrase actually Sarah Lown reminded me of. And there are 3 levels of mystery that Otto writes about. Mystery as wholly other, mystery as fear and awesome power, and mystery as fascination, something that attracts us. This morning, I would like to explore mystery as fascination. You want another example of mysterium tremendum? Mystery that comes as fascination and attraction? Okay. I experienced this here in this church a little over a month ago. Some of you actually were here. The Lynns, Alice and Stoughton, attended an event in Channing Hall to watch Shout Youngstown. Some of you might remember that. It's a film about the legal battle to try to make steel companies a workers' co-op. so workers could keep making steel in the valley and run it themselves. Local union organizers and other activists were in attendance, as well as some of you. I remember when the film ended, and there was a short break when we got coffee and snacks. And this next part, I remember every detail of this event, like it just happened right now. Stoughton was sitting in his chair and had difficulty, much difficulty, getting up out of his chair. But he had something to say. And it struck me that he didn't just say what he had to say from his chair, even though it would have been easier and certainly more convenient. But I sensed he needed to stand up for what he was about to say. But he couldn't get out of the chair. So two people in attendance, one on each side of him, put their arm under his armpit to lift him up out of the chair. And once he was upright, I remember he took 2 laborious steps, and they were laborious, toward the place he was going to speak. I remember watching the physicality of it, wondering to myself at the pain and difficulty of all of this. And once Stoughton got to where he wanted to be, he said in a quiet but emphatic voice, "What are we going to do for the working person in Youngstown?" I knew Stoughton was 92 and in ill health. He knew it too. And still, that was his concern the last month of his life. What are we going to do for the working person in Youngstown? Mysterium tremendum. Mystery that fascinates. Mystery that seems wholly other. Mystery that makes us afraid. I felt that fear now that I reflect on it. I feared I would not be able to maintain that kind of vision into old age if I get there. I wondered about the kind of trust and vision that commitment takes to keep that vision even as the body breaks down. But I saw it happen. I witnessed it. And now that I've witnessed it, I know it's possible. Not easy, but possible. Stoughton is certainly not the only person in this church who has shown me that. Many of you have. In the midst of your difficulties, personal, emotional, spiritual, sometimes all three at once, the numinous is shown. The mysterium tremendum, a mystery of kindness and mercy that surpasses usual understanding. I feel very fortunate to get to witness such things on a pretty regular basis here. What about you? Where has the mysterium tremendum been shown to you? What mystery might be calling you in this season? I think it helps to make it down to earth. It makes it no less extraordinary, at least not to me. I wrote in my minister's writing that went out in the update on Friday that about the road that closes off in the wintertime next to my house. I wrote a short poem about it. It's called Open Road. In December, they close off the road near my house to cars. There's something about the season that encourages slower motion and perhaps intention. noticing hoof prints and silence where traffic once zoomed, an open space for, I guess you'll have to find out. That's not a trick or a mean tease. It's an invitation to wonder in the open. I've been thinking of the ways that things closing can lead to opening. How a road being closed can bring openness to deer, openness to soft footprints, openness to wonder. Also things that feel as if they're closed for us. Certain realities or experiences, the shifting seasons of our life, certain ways of being that feel like they've run their course. I wonder what may be opening. The world outside is modeling it for us. As the weather grows colder, the motion of summer and fall has gradually been brought to a place of slowness. As we enter winter, that slowness can sometimes feel like stillness. For some people, there is nothing scarier than stillness. Talk about mysterium tremendum. It can be scary to enter a phase of slowness, of gentle plodding, of being still sometimes. It can be scary because it seems wholly other. It can feel unwelcome. And we can easily fantasize about the return of spring, a new energy that will eventually come. Have you ever done that? In the middle of winter, fantasize about the spring, or even summer, yearning for that time? I think that's normal. But more and more, for reasons that remain mysterious to me, I find myself yearning to appreciate each season as it is. I want to appreciate the winter. Based on the Farmer's Almanac, I can't help myself. I'm learning that appreciation may get tested this year. It's supposed to be cold, but we'll see. One thing I do know for a fact, and this is beyond a flicker of a doubt, is that I still don't know what winter will be like or how I'm going to feel about that. I'm sure I'll be surprised, which is not a bad thing. I also sense that when things grow quiet and spare, traditions from around the world tell us from various sources that this is when the light is most noticeable. This is when love becomes born into the world again. This is when enlightenment comes to us. This is when the light promises to return and never abandon us. This is corroborated by multiple cultures in different language, pointing to something mysterious and wondrous. Now is a good time for that primer, don't you think? It's good to prime ourselves for receiving that promise, that light. It's bright out, isn't it? That love. It's a good time to open ourselves to a new way of moving in the world, even in our own hearts and minds, so we might notice when the mysterium tremendum visits us. Here, in Channing Hall, when we're having tea, as we contemplate what seems to be closing off, to help us wonder what is opening. Please pray with me. Spirit of love, so grateful for this bright day. So grateful for each and every single person here who was born. It's an everyday miracle. Thank you for all those on Zoom. Thank you so much for them being born. It's an everyday miracle. Please guide us in this time of slowness, for some of us grief, for some of us a struggle, to find a little light in this season through the help of this community and through the help of a friend. All this we pray. Amen. Please rise in body or spirit for our closing hymn. It's a classic. I know we're going to read it out. This Little Light, 118.
All right, now you all know this one. Here's our little light right here. We're going to let our little light shine. It's Christmas time. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Mysterium tremendum. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, everywhere I go, let it shine. I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Building up a world. Building up a world. Let it shine. I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world. I'm gonna let it shine. I'm gonna let it shine. Building up the world. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, shine, shine. I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine.
Good job, everyone.
Feel good, don't you?
Yeah, oh yeah. I'm good. I'm good for the whole week. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we keep in our hearts until we meet again.
As you depart, please remember the one great fact: you are loved and never truly alone.
Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel.